going to be talking about marketing and branding, and this is a talk that's being given by Karen Moore, who's a fellow alumni of UCF. And I love to bring people in from the university that have been able to start companies and be able to scale those companies. And I think you're going to really enjoy the content and the context of Karen's experience related to how you can market and brand, especially when you're in a startup capacity, which can be a little bit challenging. So today our goal is to understand marketing and branding, particularly the startups, and some common pitfalls that you can avoid. I want you to be able to meet and get familiar with Karen Moore and the work that she's doing. And really we want just to arm you with information that so you feel inspired to make progress and take that next step. So with all of that said, I would love to introduce Karen Moore. She's the CEO of the Moore Agency. I find the name of her company to be very interesting on its own, not only as homage to her last name, but also to the work that she's done within the communities and with sharing her knowledge and insights with women entrepreneurs around the country. I would love if you would give people some background about yourself.
Well, thank you, Kelli, Svetlana, others. What a delight to spend some time with you today. I was just sharing that, I've spoken in probably 40 countries around the world. I've had the opportunity to speak at Harvard, but this is the first time I've been asked to speak at my alma mater. So I'm a very proud night today. So thank you. Well, I'll tell you a quick story. I was working for Florida State University. I was the director of their marketing and public relations. I've been there well over 10 years. I had the world's greatest job. And one day I just woke up with an epiphany. If I was ever going to do anything different, that was the day to do it. And so I walked into the president of the university and said, Mr. President, I just think I should open my own company. And he looked at me and he said, you've got to be kidding. He said, do you know anything about running a company? Have you ever run a company? And I said, no, sir, I haven't. And he said, well, good luck with that. And I said, well, thank you. So 3 months later, I walked out of the university. I opened the Moore Agency. This is how ill-prepared I was as a startup. I had no office, no phone, no computer, no business plan, no marketing plan, no financial plan, no clients. I had an 8-month-old baby, and my husband and I were $50,000 in debt from his law school. So I opened up a company thinking that I would be a sole proprietor, and what I wanted to do was to really reach out to underserved communities, whether it was individuals or groups, and young entrepreneurs, because I thought that since I knew nothing, I had learned all the ways not to do it, that I would share my expertise. And now, almost 30 years later, we've been recognized by Inc. magazine for 3 years in a row as one of the fastest growing businesses in America. We're in the top 100 largest communication and marketing firms in the world. And I am very proud that we are headquartered here in the state of Florida, but we have offices throughout Florida and in several time zones. And what I always say to startups and entrepreneurs, especially those entrepreneurs that may be disenfranchised or minorities or come from a disabled lens, we've got to be telling stories. A story is not necessarily you as an entrepreneur and what your product is. When I work with startups, they want to tell me, their passion and enthusiasm comes out. They want to tell me all about their product. And that's good, but I can tell you as a person who has been a funder, as a person who has been there as a business community leader, that lasts about 10 seconds and then I'm bored stiff. Because if you can't explain to me why I should be excited in less than 10 seconds, we got to start over again with a new story. A story is always about how it's going to affect Bob or Jane or Lucille. A story always has a person's name in it of either a member in your company or name of a hypothetical person that's going to be impacted by your product. So the other thing about a story is that you need to have 3 of them. If you can please write that down, you need at least 3 stories. So again, there's something called the power of 3. We need 3 stories. I can tell you 3 stories of how the work our company has done, who's either made the life of an individual better, a community, a business, etc. It's as important for you as a startup to be able to share those stories of impact as it is for you to be able to tell a funder logistics about your company. Every company needs to have 100% of their employees be able to share 3 numbers. I call them facts, but facts are always numbers. What are the 3 facts, numbers you would want them to have? Then you want to be able to have your 3 stories of what your impact is. And then you want to have 3 messages. Your message is always, what's it mean to someone else? What is the return on the investment going to be for that person? What is the impact going to be on someone else's life? When you talk about messaging, it's not about you and the company. It's all external focused. So I want you to think when you, especially as a startup, you got to think, what is it that is the value proposition? What is the differentiator? And that's what you need to talk about. And you need to talk about it in 3s. So 3 facts, 3 messages, 3 stories. The other thing, what is your message? And this, again, I talk a lot to startups about this, but frankly, it's valid for any business, whether you're in business 1 month or 1 year or 10 years. You focus on the product versus the distribution. You know, I was a funder for a company once who had a great product, but they could not tell me how they were actually going to get it out of their head through manufacturing and into a consumer's pocket. So I want you to know, yes, I'm thrilled that you're machinating, you're working on your product, you're working on the development of it, but unless you can get it out through distribution channels, then your product is not going to be as effective as possible. The other mistake that startups make, and this is more true for those that are beyond just the startup phase, is you forget to tell your story in a meaningful way. Many times people think because you know all about it, everyone else must know all about it, or they saw an article, so they must remember it. No. What you have to do with any organization, whether you're a not-for-profit or a for-profit, whether you're selling a product, whether you're really working on some other phase of what you're doing as a business owner. Let's talk about being accessible. We talked about your message. So your brand is not a logo. Your brand is not your letterhead. Your brand is not the building that you have. Your brand is what people think about you. The rule of thumb is that when you talk about your brand, not your product, your brand, you have to be able to capture that attention in about 7 to 10 seconds. The other thing is with your brand. Now, it may not be in true startups that are still in the conceptual phase, but it's certainly true as you move through the phases of being a startup, that you got to walk, talk, and reflect the brand that you have. And the number 1 tool for that's your website. Now, I could spend an entire hour talking about the good, the bad, the ugly on websites. But let me just give you a couple quick pointers. People nowadays look at websites on their mobile phone. They don't necessarily use the computer anymore. It's got to be mobile phone friendly. It can't tell me everything. A website is not meant to be an encyclopedia. A website is meant to be enough to say, yep, I want to learn more, and to encourage them and provide them access ways to contact you. I keep coming back to that message point. A funder is not going to decide based on a PowerPoint or based on a website whether they're going to give you $1 million or not, but they are going to do research on you to see if they want to talk to you about giving $1 million. So your website needs to be, write this down, full of photographs. It needs to have videos, and videos should not be more than 30 seconds, because what a person wants to see is, what do you look like, and do I think I might be interested in becoming your friend, your employer, or an owner of your company. You do that by not reading words. You do that by connecting with people. So recognize that you're loading videos, you're loading photographs, you're gonna put it on a cell phone. So make sure the technology is there to ensure that it is done in a swift and appropriate professional manner. What you want is for them to know enough of how to get your email, how to get your cell phone, your office phone, and what would be the most interesting thing about your company that I might be interested in. Now, for startups, I can tell you, having been a startup, I told you I started up as one deeply in debt. This is the rule of thumb. You must be on 3 platforms at all times, and you need to think what 3 are most appropriate for your industry sector, your business, your product. So whether it's LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, maybe it's Snapshot, LinkedIn, Facebook, and there are hundreds of others. I also want you to know that if your product has anything that is, you're trying to capture traditional and non-traditional media, nowadays, because the reporters have so been reduced, Twitter is what they read. I did a national survey of media, and they said 80% of the times they decided what story they were going to write on based on the Twitter feed that they read. So I want you to remember that. Don't just promote yourself in an isolated platform that's not going to give you a whole lot of bang for your buck. Do the research and figure out which one is the best for you. So we're back to 3 blind mice again. You got to have 3 plans. So the first one is you need a marketing plan. Now, a marketing plan, you can go on the internet and get 1,000 different examples of it. Let me tell you, the most effective marketing plans are about 2 pages long. I've worked with clients who have given me marketing plans that are spiral bound, and they probably cut down 200 trees to do it. No, the best marketing plan is clearly your mission and your vision, and what goals do you need to achieve to get and secure your mission and vision? What assets do you need to create to support achieving your goals? Assets meaning collateral material, engagement pieces. What are the activities that you need to do using your assets? The next thing you need is a timetable. What I find in marketing plans is they come up with these really elaborate and wonderfully creative ideas, but they don't have the bandwidth to do it, and they don't have the expertise to do it right. And then you need a budget. So if you can have goals, assets, activities, timelines, and dollars, you're doing good. You need to have a strategic plan. As a funder, I can tell you that I've never talked to a business that I didn't say, before we engage, please send me your strategic plan and your business plan. I want to see those things, and then I'll decide if I really want to engage with you. So I lump those two together, strategic plan and business plan, although they're two very different products. What I find is when one does one, they do the other. And so they need to be very cohesive, interrelated, and reinforcing each other. And the last plan you need to have is a crisis plan. A crisis is anything that has the potential to have an impact negatively on your business, negatively financially, negatively in retaining or recruiting talent, negatively on being able to ensure that your funders are getting a return on their investment. But people, if they don't see you and hear from you, they tend to forget about you. And forgetting about you is the worst thing can happen to a company. So you got to be constantly engaging to make sure that happens. What I say is that at least once a quarter do something, but don't do the same tactic every single quarter. Make sure that you're touching in very diverse ways. I hope this has been helpful for you. Please let me know how I can share whatever knowledge in this person brain I have.